7 bone-chilling trespassing horror stories that will haunt you forever. The night was dark, the kind that clings to your skin and haunts your thoughts. It was the type of night people warned each other about, filled with whispers of old houses where shadows moved without bodies and trees that creaked under the weight of untold tales. In the small town of Gloomsville, where the past had a habit of spilling over into the present, one particular legend stirred curiosity: the old Holloway house, a twisted relic rotting at the edge of town. Everyone knew the stories. It was said that anyone who dared trespass would feel the icy grips of fear that would haunt them for a lifetime. As rumors flew through the air, they took on a life of their own. The eerie fact that no one had spent more than a few hours inside the Holloway house sparked fierce debate. One local reported hearing whispers, chilling calls that echoed through the halls as if the very walls were sharing secrets people were never meant to uncover. A few even claimed to have seen ghostly figures drifting through windows, their hollow eyes peering at anyone too curious for their own good. It was electrifying. Then came the stories of the cursed piano, an ancient instrument that played itself on stormy nights, the notes echoing with sorrow and warning. An old man swore he once saw it in action when lightning tore through the sky. Strangely enough, the day the piano stopped playing was the day the last owner vanished without a trace, leaving nothing but silence and an empty chair. As tension simmered in Gloomsville, a group of thrill-seekers decided it was time to test their courage. They huddled close, survival instincts yelling at them to head home, but curiosity screamed louder. They knew they were pushing boundaries. It was late, and the hour was heavy with promise and dread. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the group approached Holloway House, the atmosphere thickened. The moon cast a silver glow, illuminating broken windows that looked like empty eyes staring into their souls. They felt a chill crawl down their spines as they stood at the door, hearts thudding in unison. They exchanged nervous glances, each person silently weighing the risk of stepping inside against the thrill of the unknown. One brave soul reached for the door handle, fingers trembling as their resolve began to crack. The door creaked open, unleashing a musty scent that filled their nostrils with the fragrance of decay and mystery. What awaited them inside was shrouded in darkness, each shadow concealing secrets waiting to be unearthed. They stepped in, hearts racing. What would they find, and would they ever make it out? Questions hung like a noose around their necks. How many before them never returned? What really happened in the Holloway house? As they ventured deeper, the silence became a palpable force, eager to reveal tragic truths. Little did they know something was waiting for them in the dark, just out of sight. The air inside the Holloway house was heavy, thick with years of dust and forgotten memories. Shadows nestled in corners, ready to jump at the slightest disturbance. The group huddled close together, clenching flashlights like lifelines. With every creak of the floorboards beneath their feet, a wave of unease washed over them. This was it. Curiosity blurred the line between thrill and terror. Maybe we should just check out the piano, whispered Liz, her voice barely rising above the sound of their breathing. Are you kidding? That thing is just another ghost story, Mike scoffed, masking his own fear with bravado. Ghost stories or not, I'm not sticking around to find out, Jay said, looking nervously towards the cushioned armchair sitting in the corner, almost as if it had eyes. The chair looked way too comfortable for a place like this. What had happened to the last person who sat there? Ignoring their apprehensions, they moved further into the rotting heart of the house, the darkness devouring them whole. The walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, resembling faded memories of a happier time. They stumbled into a long hallway that seemed endless, walls narrowing as they ventured deeper. Mike's flashlight flickered ominously, creating dancing shadows, twisting and contorting like spirits in torment. Every flicker felt like a whispering ghost calling their name. Suddenly, the group froze. A soft sound traveled through the air. A chord struck on the piano. "Did you hear that?" Liz gasped, eyes wide. "Surely it's just the wind or something," Mike replied, yet his voice lacked conviction. "Right," Jay snapped back. "Just the wind. Are we really going with that?" A chilling breeze washed over them, sending shivers racing down their spines. No longer able to ignore their dread, they pressed forward, the phantom melody growing louder with each step. It seemed to beckon them, an eerie invitation diving into the depths of their minds. As they approached the music room, the air crackled with tension. What lay beyond those doors? Would they find only a haunting tune, or something far darker? Pushing through the heavy door, they took a collective breath. The room was dimly lit by the moon, but it was the piano that held their attention. Old, dusty, and yet somehow alive. Its keys gleamed like worn teeth, waiting for fingers to breathe life back into its melancholic existence. "Look!" Liz pointed, her heartbeat quickening. One of the keys moved slightly, as if pressed by an unseen hand. "Get out! Not sticking around for this!" Mike yelled, backing away as panic surged through him. But the suspense had them rooted in place, the echo of the piano still filling the tension-filled air, a haunting melody ripping through the stillness. "They couldn't just leave." In an almost trance-like state, Liz reached out toward the instrument. "What if it's trying to tell us something?" But before she could touch a key, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang. The sudden noise jolted them from their stupor, eyes wide in terror. Panic surged, voices raised, as they scrambled for the door. It wouldn't budge. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room, and for a brief second, they caught a glimpse of something in the corner, an apparition, a fleeting figure that vanished as swiftly as it appeared. "What was that?" Jay shouted, terror bleeding through his voice. "Maybe it was just a trick of the light," Mike stammered, though doubt clouded his thoughts. The piano began to play again, louder this time, a dissonant melody that permeated their minds. In that moment, they realized they were never alone. They weren't just trespassers anymore, they were invited guests in a house that held far more than they bargained for. As the ghostly music swelled around them, they wondered what would the Holloway house reveal about its spine-chilling past? And would they uncover secrets or be swallowed whole in the depths of its despair? The question hovered in the air like the creeping darkness. Who would emerge from this ordeal, and who, if anyone, would be left behind? The atmosphere in the music room thickened, as if the very walls were breathing in tandem with the ghostly melody. Each note resonated deep within their chests, wrapping around their hearts like icy fingers. Fear hung heavy in the air, but curiosity was a relentless force driving them forward. "Stop it! Just stop!" Mike shouted, his voice echoing in the narrow confines of the room. He slammed his hands against the door, desperation crawling up his spine. "Let us out!" The piano, however, paid no heed to his pleas. Instead, it continued its haunting tune, playful yet somber, a song that felt both familiar and agonizingly foreign. Liz, drawn in by its allure, took a step closer to the instrument. "There's something here that wants us to listen," she murmured, almost to herself. "What, the ghosts are giving us a concert now?" Jay countered, his sarcasm failing to mask his rising panic. He shifted uneasily, eyes darting around the room as if expecting the next ghostly figure to appear. Suddenly, the melody shifted. The notes grew sharper, a discordant clash that echoed with 1,000 unspoken words. The air hummed with electricity, a low growl resonating beneath the surface, igniting every nerve in their bodies. Before they could process this change, the air shifted again. A cold draft swept through the room like a wraith, sending chills down their backs. Shadows in the corners seemed to swell and pulse as if breathing in sync with the music. Mike's flashlight flickered once more, casting unsettling shapes on the peeling walls. "Wait!" Liz gasped, spotting something tucked near the piano's leg, an old, tattered notebook, its pages yellowing. She reached out, instinctively drawn to it. What could it possibly contain? She could taste the allure of curiosity mingling with the bitter tang of dread. "Don't touch that!" Jay shouted, gripping her arm with wide-eyed urgency. "What if it has answers?" Liz insisted, pulling away just enough to grasp the notebook. As soon as she flipped open the cover, the melody paused abruptly, as if the piano itself was holding its breath, waiting. Written in hasty, barely legible scrawl, the first entry read, "The music recalls their names. Beware the lullaby of Holloway or pay the price." Her heart raced, every word sending a shockwave through the fraught silence. Mike leaned in, peering over her shoulder. "What does that even mean?" Suddenly, the piano shattered the silence once more, this time playing a sinister refrain, notes spiraling into a chaos that resonated with their very fears. Heartbeats thrummed in unison with the relentless rhythm, and they felt a presence grow around them, a gathering storm. The shadows twisted, elongating into eerie shapes, faces contorted in sorrow and despair. "Get away from it!" Jay screamed, dragging Liz back. But it was too late. As if summoned by their fear, figures began to manifest in the dim light, translucent silhouettes, drifting toward them like whispers beckoning from the beyond. Each figure bore an expression of longing, desperation, and something darker, almost predatory. The room felt alive now, pressing against them, tightening like a noose. They were no longer mere spectators, they were entangled in the sorrow of those who had roamed this house before them. "What are we going to do?" Mike whispered, his eyes darting around as he searched for a way out. Lisa's breath caught in her throat, a suffocating knot of dread closing around her heart. "We can't stay here," she stammered, yearning for the door that now felt like a prison. The apparitions moved closer, reaching out with skeletal fingers, their mournful wails blending into the chaotic crescendo of the piano's dissonance. "Run!" Mike shouted, and without hesitation, they surged towards the door. But as they pushed against it with all their might, a chilling laugh erupted from the shadows. The door held firm, imprisoning them in this nightmarish symphony. In that fraught moment, Liz caught a fleeting glimpse of the piano, its keys still vibrating with the echoes of countless souls. Perhaps they weren't meant to leave. Perhaps some secrets were meant to be heard, and some stories to be lived through. As the shadows drew near, Liz found herself torn between horror and enchantment. What if they could unlock the truth hidden within this cursed melody? But at what cost? Would they break free from the Holloway house, or were they destined to join the haunting symphony of the damned? Each rapid heartbeat whispered answers she feared to confront, and the melodies grew louder, engulfing them once more, and as the chaos swelled to a peak, the ground beneath them began to shake, pulling them into a deeper abyss. What would they discover if they dared to play their part in this ghostly tale? The ground trembled violently beneath their feet, turning their panic into pure terror as the music surged, a cacophony rising higher and higher, drowning out their thoughts. Liz could feel the vibrations in her bones, an unsettling reminder of their desperate situation. It was as if each note from the piano unleashed a primal instinct to flee, yet something deeper held them in place, a magnetic pull that was both fearsome and irresistibly alluring. "What is happening?" Jay screamed, his voice nearly lost in the dissonance. Mike's face twisted, a mixture of anger and fear. We need to break the song. It's holding us here." His hands were shaking, gripping the notebook that Liz still clutched tightly. "But how?" Liz pleaded, her voice strained. She felt weightless, the shadows coiling around her ankles like smoke, slowing her down. Each apparition extended its hand, beckoning her closer. There was a pleading in their eyes, a longing for acknowledgement. "I don't know. Just figure it out." Mike's frustration spilled into the air, thickening like the fog rolling in around them. In that swirling chaos, Liz's gaze fell back to the notebook. She flipped through the pages, frantically searching for anything, words, phrases that might give them a way out, something to break this wicked spell. As she scanned the barely decipherable writing, a phrase caught her eye, all debts must be paid, she gasped, the realization hitting her like an icy wave. What if we have to play the melody? Jay shook his head furiously. That piano? You're insane. We can't play that curse. But it says we must listen, and maybe, just maybe, if we play, we could unearth whatever this is, this debt, Liz insisted, her heart pounding louder than the symphony swirling around them. Time felt like it was spiraling out of control, the shadows grew more agitated, their grasp tightening around their throats. Desperation clawed at her mind, and she knew there wasn't much time left. Okay. Together, Mike said, determination flickering in his eyes. If we have to, we'll play the damned song. Taking a deep breath, Liz slowly approached the piano, the cold emanating from it sending shivers down her spine. She hesitated, clenching the notebook tightly at her side. What if it's a trap? Who cares? Jay chimed in, his voice spiked with a strange mix of adrenaline and fear. We can't stay here. We have to try something. With shaky hands, Liz positioned herself at the keys, mindful of the piercing eyes of the ghosts surrounding them. There was a strange harmony beckoning her, a rhythm that felt eerily comforting. She pressed a key tentatively, and the room reacted instantly. A thick silence draped over the chaos, the shadows halted, holding their breath as if waiting for the next note. Each press of the key reverberated through the room, and with every sound, Liz felt the wings of terror lift, just slightly. What if they're warning us? She whispered. Doesn't matter now, Mike said, stepping up beside her. Just play, promise me you won't stop. With returning resolve, she began to play, channeling instinct as she let the notes flow from her fingers. The haunting melody unfolded, echoing the feelings of loss, regret, and sorrow. As each note fell, Liz could feel the apparition swaying in rhythm. Suddenly, the piano erupted with a furious energy, and uninvited harmony clashing against what she played. No! It's fighting back! Liz cried, panic reigniting in her chest. The shadows surged forward, faces twisting in agony, their grip expressing an urgency that could not be ignored. Don't stop! Jay shouted over the building tide of sound. Liz's heart raced, an overwhelming instinct to finish what she started took hold. She felt the piano resonating, begging to finish the tune. And then, from deep within her, a breath caught in her throat. What if she wasn't just playing a song? What if this was a ritual? The air thickened with sharp tension, each stroke of the keys feeding the shadows that were drawing closer until, with one final note, the piano began to shake violently, and the entire room dissolved into a whirlwind of sound and shadow. Liz closed her eyes, bracing for whatever would come next, but as the final note hung in the air, there was a deafening silence. In that moment, they felt suspended between two worlds. What had they awakened? Then, a chilling whisper echoed through the stillness, sending ice through her veins. Did you really think you could escape the echoes of Holloway? And just like that, darkness consumed them, dragging them deeper into the depths of a haunting legacy. What had they unleashed? The silence was thick, suffocating, wrapping around them like cold hands squeezing tighter with every breath. Liz blinked, her eyes struggling to adjust to the overwhelming darkness. She tried to move, but her body felt like it was anchored to the floor. The last note still hung in the air like a ghost of what had just transpired, and its reverberations rattled in her bones. Guys? Jay's voice trembled, a mere whisper in the abyss. Mike's hand shot out, finding Liz's arm. I'm here. We're all here. His words seemed to fuel her strength, pushing through the grip of dread, but as their surroundings slowly materialized, panic surged anew. They were no longer in the music room. They stood in an endless void, a swirling mass of shadows and flickering lights. Each silhouette seemed to pulse with life, their eyes gleaming like embers in the dark. Where are we? Liz felt her voice cracking under the weight of fear. We unleashed something, Mike murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Something that doesn't want us here. The shadows shifted, morphing into figures she recognized. Faces of people long forgotten carried with an ancient sorrow that gripped her heart. Some looked pleading, while others wore expressions of wrath, twisting in pain and anger. Liz stumbled back, gasping. They look familiar. Liz, focus. We need to get out, Jay snapped, pulling her back from the tendrils of darkness that reached closer. But she couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity. It clawed at her mind. What does it want from us? Why do they look like? It doesn't matter. Mike shouted, urgency slicing through their fear. We need a way to break whatever hold this place has over us. His words lingered, a desperate plea hanging in the icy air. Liz felt the notebook's weight at her side, that fragile bridge to their reality. Maybe the answer is in the book. It has to be. With shaking hands, she fumbled to retrieve it, opening to the pages filled with scrawled notes and frantic sketches. The words swirled before her eyes, her heart racing to catch up. It said something about debts must be paid. What if that's our way out? Mike's brow furrowed. How do we pay it? I don't know. Liz felt the walls of panic closing in again. But it's something we have to guess. We need to remember all of it, what they wanted, what their stories were. The shadows stirred, their forms shifting with unsettling restlessness. Among them, one figure broke away, stepping forward with care, a woman with hollow eyes and a sadness that drained the very light from the space around them. You've come here uninvited, she spoke, her voice echoing like a distant chime. You've awakened the echoes and the price must be paid. Price? Jay echoed. For what? For ruining our lives? His anger held fast, but fear crackled beneath it. Liz stepped forward, curiosity mingling with dread. What do you want? All at once, the shadows converged, and the air rushed with whispers, distant echoes of pleas and promises broken. The woman's face twisted in sorrow. We want only to be remembered. But time is a cruel mistress, debts are forgotten, and so are we. Liz felt a pang of guilt hit her hard. Were they the ones to blame? Was their negligence what brought them here? The equations of guilt began swirling in her mind. What if we shared your stories? Told them to the world? The whispering grew louder, shadows flickering with agitation. Stories must be paid in blood. Wait, blood? Mike's eyes widened. What do you mean? We're not giving you, but the woman's expression went cold, and the shadows moved in tighter. If you don't share what you've taken, something must be taken from you. It hit Liz like a freight train, the urgency of the words wrapping around her throat. Time ticked away, and with it, they were losing their chance to escape. We have to decide. Now. With the darkness closing around them, amounts of silhouettes pressed closer. Each face twisted in devastation, whispering in a language only a few could comprehend. What were they prepared to sacrifice for their chance at freedom? The stakes were rising higher, and in that moment, a haunting realization struck Liz like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't just a choice they faced, it was a reckoning that would change everything. What would they risk to survive? The shadows pulsed, waiting, and in that deepest dark, a new question emerged. What stories must be told and who would be left to tell them? The air crackled with tension, sharpening the silence into an edged tool that could cut. Shadows loomed, pressing inwards like hungry wolves, and Liz felt the weight of their expectation. Blood, Jay whispered, his eyes wide with a blend of fear and horror. You can't be serious. We're not going to just give them that. Guys, we're running out of time. Mike urged, his tone rising in desperation. We need to think. If they want to be remembered, maybe sharing something else will work. They mean something more, Liz interrupted, a shiver racing down her spine as she caught a flicker of movement in the darkness. Something they deserve, something they've lost. The woman in the center, that wraith-like figure, seemed to nod almost imperceptibly. Her hollow eyes glinted with a spark of hope, or perhaps it was disdain. With every passing moment, the walls of darkness tightened around them. Liz glanced at the notebook again, its pages filled with reckless scribbles. What if her thoughts could bridge the gap? Think, she urged her friends. Think about the stories you know. What could we share? What could return to them? They were someone, Mike said slowly, as if pulling an idea from the depths of his mind. They were people. Their lives had meaning once. The shadows surged with renewed energy, faces weaving closer, listening intent, the air thickening with their anticipation. Liz closed her eyes, trying to visualize the people she sensed in the dark. Names, stories, tragedies lost to time. They want us to remember them. To tell who they were before they lost everything. Do you even understand what you're saying? Jay shot back, the panic sharpening his tone. You think we can just tell their stories and that'll be enough? It feels wrong. It's not about us, Liz pressed, swallowing back her fear. It's about them. We can't let their pain vanish into silence. Suddenly, the temperature plunged, and the veil of darkness began to sway with an unseen force. Liz sensed an urgency enveloping her, the collective weight of the past pressing down hard. The faces edged forward, each one a tapestry of sorrow and longing, desperation etched into every furrowed brow, every hollowed cheek. The woman reached out a ghostly hand, trembling. Come, share. Remember. All right. Mike's voice quivered, but there was a flicker of resolution sparking within him. I'll start. He stepped hesitantly into the throng of shadows. This is for you, he began, his voice rising above the whispers. I remember a boy from my childhood. He was happy, loved playing with fireflies. As Mike spoke, the shadows seemed to pause, their whispers diminishing. They leaned closer, as if drawing sustenance from his words, those fleeting moments of warmth and light. But one night the fireflies went out. He ran into the woods, searching, and when he returned Mike faltered, choking on the memory. He never came back. The air changed, reverberating with a mixture of emotions: loss, joy, and unbearable sorrow. The shadows swirled as more expressions tightened into focus, the atmosphere shifting with their yearning. Liz felt that yearning tugging at her own heart. Your turn, Liz, Jay urged, fear trembling his tone. You had someone too. But before Liz could respond, the shadows erupted, faces merging into sheer torment, as if they were crying out to her, remember us. Taking a breath, she stepped forward, feeling the collective eyes upon her. There was a girl, a dancer. She was brilliant. But during her last performance, she stumbled, and she never danced again. Her voice cracked. She faded into obscurity. No one remembered her light. As those words left her lips, the shadows surged, an electric push that reverberated through the air. A cacophony of whispers soaked in desperate longing for what was lost. More. Give us more. Tell us. They cried, their voices rising into a chorus of anguish and hope. But Liz's heart raced, the terror of discovery wrapping around her like chains. How far would they go for salvation? What more would they take from her? Not our blood, Jay pleaded, but the urgency of the shadows only intensified, drowning out his voice. The price must be paid. The woman howled, her figure wavering dangerously. Liz felt the darkness pulsating, ready to exact a toll. What stories would they risk next? How much more could they endure before the shadows collected their due? As she stood there, caught between the phantoms and an impending doom, a chilling thought clutched at her heart. What if the story they needed to hear most was their own demise? Ahead stretched the unknown, and before the shadows' appetite could consume them whole, Liz knew that the real horror was only just beginning. Would they craft the stories that would release them, or would they seal their fates into the annals of darkness forever? The shadows recoiled as if struck by lightning, swirling around Liz like a tempest. The air thickened with despair, and the shadows pressed closer, their collective voices echoing in her mind, pulsating in rhythm with her frantic heart. Remember us. Give us what we seek. Liz's instinct screamed at her to flee, but something anchored her in place. She was aware of Mike and Jay behind her, trembling against the weight of the darkness. Their fear was palpable, a shared pulse that thumped through the air. "More," Liz said, her voice trembling yet firm. "I'll tell you another story." She forced the words out, feeling the ghostly eyes lock onto her. "There was a man, he built a house for his family, poured his heart into every nail and beam. But one stormy night, disaster struck. The house collapsed, taking his dreams with it." As she spoke, she could feel the shadows inhaling her words like a lifeline. A distant rumble, as if the darkness itself was mourning, echoed through the air. "But he didn't lose his spirit," Liz continued, her breath quickening as she recalled the story's happier moments. "He rebuilt with nothing but his determination and love. He fought against the odds, and in doing so, he found a new purpose and family." The shadows paused, grief mingling with flickers of hope, skeletal hands reaching forward, grasping at her tail. But Liz could sense a growing hunger beneath the surface, an insatiable need that clung to them like a shadow clings to its source. "What if they want something more?" Mike's voice cut through the murky depths. "What if just memories aren't enough? Is that what you want? A family member lost too soon?" Liz challenged the shadows, her own panic bubbling just beneath her skin. "Tell me their names. Give us something to share, maybe that will buy us more time." The woman in the middle seemed to flicker as if caught in strobe lights, her sorrow deepening before Liz's eyes. "We want our remembrance. Our names to echo long past this night." "Then let me tell you," Liz's mind raced. "Let me tell you of the girl who never got to say goodbye to her grandmother, who taught her how to bake apple pies by the window." Each word was a plea, a lifeline thrown into an abyss. She stood at that window, waiting. But the one day she was too late, her grandmother was gone. The shadows shifted again, exchanging glimmers of recognition. They leaned closer, the masks of grief and yearning more vibrant than ever. "Please, we need more." The chorus howled, but there was something darker nestled in their voices. An urgency, the hunger clinging like damp moss. "What's the price?" Jay's voice trembled, the color drained from his face. Their pent-up torment seemed to vibrate with his words. "Your stories must be complete, or you pay with blood," the woman snarled, her voice ethereal yet metallic, cutting through Liz's resolve. "What do you mean?" Liz shot back, desperation clawing at her throat. "What blood? Our blood? Every tale must have a price," the haunting chorus converged, for remembrance can only thrive where sacrifice lingers. Liz's mind raced, blurring with panic. We want." But the shadows suffocated her protests, weaving in and out like a tempest of despair, each face a testament to the untold stories that echoed through the abyss. Cries of anguish filled the air, thick with shadows growing restless. "Tell us your story, or join the lost." A wave of dread washed over Liz. The shadows stirred more violently, closing the circle, their hungry tendrils tearing at the edges of her sanity. In one last act of desperation, Liz shouted, "Did you say join the lost?" A heavy silence fell. The shadows paused, exchanging glances thick with dread, before the ghastly figure of the woman stepped closer, her hollow gaze penetrating through the darkness surrounding them. "You must look into the abyss to understand what they seek." As her heart raced, Liz understood the depths of their pain and hovered on a precipice of terror. Would they have to confront their own possible demise to save the memories of these forgotten souls? Liz's gut churned with unease. What lay ahead would test everything she believed, but she wasn't sure how long her friends could endure the pressure. One final question trembled on her lips before the next storm rolled in: what happens if we refuse? The answer felt like a distant thunderclap, something darker looming behind the promise of shadows. The air thickened, a miasma of dread that clawed at Liz's throat. She glanced at Mike and Jay, their faces ghostly pale, eyes wide with terror. Every heartbeat echoed a wild tempo, each one urging her to flee, yet the shadows encircled them, relentless and hungry. What happens if we refuse? The question echoed, hanging in the tension like a guillotine waiting to fall. The shadows stirred, and the darkness seemed to vibrate with anticipation, the answers shimmering just out of reach. The woman stepped closer, the flicker of her form casting haunting shadows against the ground. Refusal comes at a cost, she whispered, her voice slithering into their ears. The lost will claim what is theirs. They will devour you, body and soul, erasing your names from all memory. A cold shiver ran down Liz's spine, freezing her within the crushing embrace of fear. She could barely breathe, yet the fascination held her captive. What do you mean, claim what is theirs? Your essence, your spirit, the chorus roared, each voice intertwining like a serpent eating its own tail. Once you become part of the tale, there is no way out. You lose your memory, your purpose, until you are nothing but another lost find. A sudden rush of cold air filled her lungs like ice, and she felt the claws of despair lengthen around her heart. But we're not dead yet. She protested, desperation rising in her voice. Isn't there anything we can do? A cacophony of whispers swirled around them, a symphony of grief and anguish. Stories lay bare your truths or be feasted upon. The shadows pulsed, their urgency drawing closer, threatening to engulf her completely. Mike stepped forward, his face taut with determination. All right, he shouted, trying to mask his fear. Let us just tell you what happened. We'll share our stories. We can do that. Liz shook her head, no. This isn't about us. It's about you. She felt an electric undercurrent of tension ripple through the shadows, an empathy merging with their madness momentarily. Let us think this through, Jay quaked, trembling as he spoke. If memories alone aren't enough, what stories are worth spilling? The phantom woman tilted her head, curiosity ignited in her eyes. Find the ones that cut deep. The ones that ache like an unhealed wound. A flicker of understanding washed over Liz. They had to unearth the pain inside them, the roots that twisted and grew with grief. But how could she dig when the shadows pulled tighter, whispering dark secrets that threatened to tear them apart? What do you want to hear from us? Liz asked, her voice a mere thread above the encroaching darkness. Your regrets, losses, the whispers surged, more frantic. The moments you wish you could rewrite. Liz felt the walls closing in. J's voice broke through the bleakness, quivering as he spoke. I regret not being there for my brother. His voice cracked, vulnerability spilling like shards of glass. As he spoke, the shadows quivered, their hunger momentarily quelled. That's it. Liz shouted, emboldened. Tell them everything. Don't hold back. We have to dig deeper. With determined breaths, Mike joined in, recounting a memory that sat like a stone in his chest. I lost my best friend in an accident, and I never got to say goodbye. He was everything to me. The shadows paused, absorbing their raw grief. Liz took a deep breath, steeling herself against the swelling despair, and shared her own heartache. I lost my mom in a car crash. My only comfort was knowing she had loved me until her last breath. The shadows swayed, weaving in and out, as emotion thickened the air. More deeper they chanted, the chorus building into a fervor that set the darkness crackling like dry leaves consumed by fire. Liz's pulse quickened, tension coiling. They were reaching something, but as she delved deeper into their collective sorrows, a dread lingered in the back of her mind. What would happen if they weren't enough? And then, the shadows grew chaotic, swirling violently. More. Or the cost will be yours to pay. Fear surged fiercely, and Liz's mind raced with a frantic urgency. They needed to uncover what lay beneath their stories, or they'd return to where they started, just another cautionary tale, lost to shadows. Okay, she breathed, her heart hammering. Tell me, what are you afraid of? What haunts you the most? The shadows fell silent, and a stillness filled the void. It was as if the darkness was caught, their collective breath held in anticipation. Something pivotal was about to unravel, but what would they discover when they dared to plunge deeper into the abyss? The stillness wrapped around them like a suffocating cloak. Liz could feel every heartbeat reverberate through the air, like the ticking of a clock counting down to an inevitable doom. The shadows, eager for a revelation, grew tense, their whispers a soft murmur of desperation. "What are we afraid of?" Mike's voice broke the silence, trembling as if he were just as afraid of his own thoughts. I can't stand the idea of being forgotten. Of never being remembered. My biggest fear is leaving no mark on this world." As he spoke, Liz watched shadows ripple around him, swirling with his words. The darkness seemed to absorb his fear, almost relishing it. "Good," the woman hissed, advancing slightly, her features shifting like a mirage. "What else?" J.'s face twisted in deep conflict. "I hate that I'm not strong enough. I let my brother down, it cost him everything." His breath faltered, the bitterness of regret weighing heavily on his tongue. "What if I'm never able to forgive myself? What if I end up just like him, lost, alone?" The shadows stirred again, feeding on J.'s confession, their movement becoming more frantic, more alive. Liz felt panic rise within her. They were racing against time, and her own voice seemed stuck in her throat, suffocated by fear. Suddenly, the oppressive stillness shattered like glass. The dark woman's eyes shone with a malevolent light. "Hauntings are born from the truths you bury. Let them surface. Let us taste your darkest secrets." The shadows surged forward with renewed vigor, lunging at them. Liz felt her heart pound in her chest, each thud echoing in her ears. There was no escaping their hunger, the darkness was waiting, poised to consume them whole if they didn't deliver. Summoning every ounce of courage within her, Liz forced herself to speak. "I'm scared that all my pain is my own doing. That I caused my mother's accident. What if she never wanted me? What if it was my fault she's gone?" As her words hung in the air, a wave of silence swept across the shadows. They pulsed with a sinister pleasure at her admission, nearly vibrating with delight. "More! More!" They shrieked in unison, the chorus swelling into an overwhelming roar. The depths of their fears rushed in, thick and murky, swirling around like a tempest. Liz braced herself. They needed to dig deeper, to unearth something truly dark, but the uncertainty of what that could be gnawed at her gut. Would it be worth it? Would they go too far? "Fine!" Mike nearly shouted, scrambling for his own buried truth. "I'm afraid of failing, of becoming nothing. I couldn't save my friend, and I don't think I can save either of you. What if I keep losing people, and it just doesn't stop?" His admission was like a spark in a powder keg, igniting the shadows. They twisted, surged, and screamed in an ecstatic frenzy, relishing each layer of agonizing truth they were being fed. As an electric energy surged through the air, plunging deeper into the recesses of disaster felt like a merciless plunge into ice water. "I don't want to fade," Liz gasped, her voice hoarse and raw. "What if I lose myself, my memories?" The woman, now a whirlwind of shadows and pain, smiled wickedly, a grin reflecting an abyss. "Then your fate shall be sealed as yours intertwines with the lost." Every heartbeat drummed louder, mixing with the chaos around them. Liz realized that they had ventured too far. They had sparked something far more dangerous than they had intended. The shadows coiled back, almost in unison, ready to plunge their fangs deeper into the collective fears that now lay bare before them. Then, just as Liz felt the shadows tightening around her, her gaze caught something amiss in the dark, small flickers of light, barely visible, struggling to break through the thick cloak of despair. "What are those lights?" she gasped, her heart racing with both hope and terror. The shadows froze momentarily, an eerie quiet enveloping the air. It was as if the abyss had paused, waiting for the answer, the darkness threatening to lash out again. What were the lights? Where did they come from? And would they illuminate their way out, or guide them deeper into darkness? The flickering lights danced like fireflies in a summer night, barely piercing through the weight of shadows that clung to Liz and her friends. Liz felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, a desperate wish to latch onto something other than fear. Maybe they lead to a way out. She blurted, her eyes widening as she took a step forward, glancing back to see if Mike and Jay would follow. No, Mike murmured, his voice trembling. What if they trap us in more darkness? What if? Liz interrupted, shaking her head. This is our chance. We have to try. With a shaky breath, she stepped into the swirling shadows, her heart pounding like a drum. The others hesitated, but then, sensing the urgency, they followed. As they moved toward the lights, the shadows seemed to hiss, retreating slightly as if they feared the spark of hope. The closer they got, the more defined the lights became, small orbs glowing like candles in a blizzard, casting familiar shapes around them. Liz felt an unusual warmth radiate from each flickering orb, and she could sense the fear melting away just a little. With each step, the whispers of despair softened, intertwining with hints of laughter and whispers of love, a reminder of life's fleeting beauty. Do you feel that? Jay whispered, awe in his voice. It's different. Suddenly the shadows lurched forward, as though activated by their hope. You cannot escape. They snarled, their voices twisted with rage. The price must be paid. Their outcry caused Liz to quicken her pace, adrenaline surging as she reached out for the glowing lights. Come on, we're almost there. She urged, pulling Jay and Mike with her. But just as they felt the pull of the lights, the shadows deepened, swirling violently and battering against their minds with screams of longing and anger. Your stories do not free you. They shrieked, cold eyes narrowing. You must forsake your lives to join the echo. No! Liz shouted, mustering her voice against the gale of despair. We won't be silent witnesses to your pain anymore. Taking a leap of faith, she lunged for the nearest orb, fingers brushing against its warm surface. In an instant, the swarm of lights exploded around them, illuminating the darkness with a brilliance that forced back the shadows. The lights pulsed, growing brighter with every truth they had shared, their stories intertwining and weaving together, forming a tapestry of light that rivaled the night sky. Remember us. The shadows howled, but their fury dwindled as the brightness surged. Feeling a surge of clarity, Liz closed her eyes and reached deep within her heart. You are not alone. She shouted, feeling warmth radiate from her words, pouring immensely into the lights. Your pain is heard. We honor your memories. As though responding to her proclamation, the lights pulsed stronger, wrapping around the shadows. The whispering started to change from anguish to recognition, almost as if the spirits felt themselves acknowledged for the first time in too long. One by one, the specters began to dissipate, their faces softening, freeing themselves from the burdens of grief. The dark woman at the center looked momentarily stunned, her haunting visage shifting into something less ethereal and more fully formed, a woman who had once been alive. Thank you, she whispered, fading into the growing light. The shadows vanished one by one, whispers of gratitude flowing through the air, intertwining with the brilliance that now filled the space. Liz stood firmly, her friends beside her, feeling the freedom wash over them like a cleansing tide. The darkness receded altogether, light bursting triumphantly around them. With the shadows dispelled, the house itself seemed to breathe for the first time in decades. The air felt lighter, the mustiness fading like a dream upon waking. Liz felt a tug at her heart, a connection to those they had honored, a promise to remember them long after this night. Did we? Jay hesitated, a glimmer of disbelief threading his voice. Did we really do it? Liz smiled, feeling a weight lift from her chest. We honored their stories, and now, they're free. Let us go home, Mike stated, determination flooding his voice. The courage crackled in the air as they made their way back, the path clearer ahead of them. Each step felt like a goodbye to the past, but also a salute to the futures that lay ahead. Once outside the Holloway house, they stopped, gazing back at the once maligned structure now bathed in the soft glow of the moon. Its secrets were no longer a prison, but a canvas for stories shared, a testament to lives lived, whispered in a chorus of memory. As they turned to leave, Liz felt a smile tug at her lips. "We'll make sure they're never forgotten." With that promise in their hearts, they stepped into the night, ready to embrace a world washed clean by the echoes they had dared to unleash. And as they drove away, the moon shimmered, illuminating the path before them, now filled not with shadows, but with the light of remembrance. But don't forget, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this twist. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans understand how important your support is.